Greetings, welcome back to Black Bear News, where we are discussing climate change, abrupt climate change, and things adjacent. And if you are tuning in, you are probably smarter than the average bear. Moving into some other newses. Boris Johnson's father joins climate protesters in London. And this is from a few days ago. Wednesday, October 9th, the father of British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has joined climate protesters in London after his son urged the demonstrators to pack up their hemp-smelling tents and leave. Stanley Johnson told Extinction Rebellion demonstrators that they had exactly the right things in mind with their demand to slash carbon emissions to zero. He also said that the eco-movement was tremendously important. It is absolutely clear to me that we have been moving far too slowly on the climate change issue. I imagine the father and son relationship must not be too tight. Boris Johnson called the protesters uncooperative crusties who should abandon their hemp-smelling bivouacs. He does have a way with words. Stanley Johnson said, "I wear that badge with pride." Moving on to the story that seems to be taking up a lot of space in the news, but it's, something to talk about. Ellen DeGeneres was hanging out with President Bush and talking about we should just all be nice to each other, no matter what our opinions are, no matter if you, just killed a few 100,000 people or maybe 1 million people with your lies and your war crimes, let's just be nice. And this is, when really wealthy liberals such as Ellen DeGeneres or Bill Maher, who are totally disconnected from what regular people might be thinking and feeling. They're just all part of the elite class, and if you're one in the elites, then you're in the club. You're in a big fucking club, and nobody else is. So if you're in the club, then everything's fine. And Joy Behar, interestingly, equates that to chumming around with Donald Trump, which is actually a good equation, because that's exactly what it's like. George Bush was absolutely hated for good reason, and he still is probably the most destructive president we've had in recent history, much farther than Donald Trump. I mean, Donald Trump is an asshole and not a good guy, and he's really done some disgusting things, but I mean, he really doesn't hold a candle to George Bush. And we could just talk endlessly about the terrible things that he did. Anyways, she got a lot of backlash for being chummy with this war criminal, this warmonger, this war criminal, bloodthirsty, evil, disgusting person. But that's fine, if you're Ellen DeGeneres, if you're really rich and you look like you're cryogenically sealed every night in a tomb or a coffin and only to awake again and do your show. And then these people don't look real either. They look like they're made of wax. So, they're pressed in wax every day until, at the end of the day, they kind of melt and, and then somebody, reheats them and melts them down and makes them into wax figures again the next day. Yeah. And moving on to the story, this is very interesting. There's, lots of to do about Donald Trump and the Ukraine, and and also Joe Biden and his part in the corruption game, which is actually valid, right? Not excusing Trump's corruption. It's totally worth everyone's while to look at Joe Biden's corruption and all the other, lovely friends that he kept that are all part of the same club that just do whatever they want and see no reprimands or see no justice. And Joe Biden absolutely, it's actually on film, he absolutely admitted to the fact that he held this $1 billion in aid over the Ukraine's head over firing a prosecutor. So conditioned U.S. aid. Did the exact same thing that Trump did, and only he admitted it. He's proud of it. He was like, we got them, those little, Ukrainian cockroaches. We got them because we're the U.S., big, mighty U.S. with the $1 billion that we hung over their heads. Here you go. You want it? You want it? Yeah, Joe Biden is no better than Donald Trump. No, he's just a walking corrupt scumbag. Anyways, Edward Snowden threatened countries not. Joe Biden threatened countries not to give me asylum. So Edward Snowden was almost not allowed to have a place to go, and that was under Joe Biden's direction. And John Kerry, then Secretary of State John Kerry, pressured countries that protect whistleblowers and asylum seekers to deny him entrance. But Edward Snowden actually got the better. Edward Snowden actually got the better of the whistleblower deal. He got better than most because he's basically a free man in Russia. Whereas Julian Assange was, basically a prisoner in the Ecuadorian embassy for years, developed some severe health problems, and now he's languishing and even going deeper into health problems in a British prison. And, Chelsea Manning, again, she's in prison. I don't know if she got out yet or not, but, was thrown in prison again for not testifying against Julian Assange. Edward Snowden is still, for the most part, free and able to, talk to the world. For whatever reason. But anyways, if you're concerned about corruption on the right and you're not concerned about the corruption on the left, then it's not true, or it's conspiracy theory, or it's a right-wing smear, you're probably have very little moral compass, because you just want your side to be right, and there's nothing your side could do wrong, and that's absolutely not true. The facts are the facts, and I think that's really what people have a problem with. That's the real thing that people have an issue with, is that all of these people lie. It's not, Trump is a crazy lunatic, and yet, a lot of people don't really care because it's the crazy lunatics calling Trump a crazy lunatic. So who has a moral leg to stand on? Not. And then in the end, you just end up, validating each side's corruption and incompetency because, well, if they do it, then we can do it, and they can do it, they can do it. And then everybody is just kind of disgust and creep. Moving on to the Rebel Daily 3 from XR. They gave their lives. Empathy begins at home. Many of those reading this will, in the past days and months, have fought, grafted, struggled to build spaces where human beings can come together, support one another in a shared sense of love and grief. Grief for the damage we see all around us. Grief for the future we fear for our children and ourselves. For many, it's only by means of this hard-won togetherness that our eyes can be opened to another harsh truth, that the emergency is not a future prospect, but is in fact a fact of life for countless people and communities around the world and has been for decades. With their own conditions stable for now, XR communities in Paris and London joined in a wave of solidarity for fallen Earth defenders, those for whom standing up for life and for the natural world has meant death. The idea of the supportive wave came from XR Argentina, was taken up as far away as Dublin, Cape Town, and Islamabad. Indeed. Last year, 164 activists were killed in the global south for trying to defend their lands from corporate extractivism. Yesterday, rebels all over the world held vigils to honor them, coming together in a global solidarity action. In the north, protesters are put through all kinds of trials and tribulation, but rarely are they just outright killed. But this is what happens in the South, in South America especially. Just murdered. In Buenos Aires, Large group walked to the UN building, each member dressed in black, holding a candle and carrying a sign bearing the name of one of the 164 murdered activists. In Islamabad, rebels silently constructed a gallows outside the National Press Club and staged the hanging of 2 rebels who stood precariously on blocks of ice. Behind them stood a large sign listing the names of the 164. Also in Dublin, Cape Town, London. Still actions going on in Berlin, London, Paris, Santiago, Chile, Cape Town, South Africa, Quebec, Australia. This is worldwide. This is a movement that is happening. And is for the sake of the betterment, hopefully, somehow, some way, or the chance to possibly turn the ship around, or even, take some kind of meaningful action, even if the ship cannot be turned around. But not all is not lost yet. We are all still here. The sun is still shining. We still have, some semblance of seasons, and there's greenery all around us, and for now we are still living and breathing, and have a chance to put up a fight, if not against our own terrible natures. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. If you would like to support this channel, you can do so at the links below. Until next time, peace.